Hey everybody, just take a look through this video. You can fast forward to any of the specific questions you had on different problems, but hopefully this will help you figure out why you got the score you got. Of course, there's many different ways to do problems, and I'm just going to be showing you one way to do them, the way that I think about things, but it's just one way. You definitely could be that you did a different way. The most important thing is that I needed to see work. You probably missed points if you got the right answer if you didn't show the steps that you used to get there. And this first problem was one of the problems I didn't give people full points on, even if they had the right answer, because you can't just look at this problem and find the solution to it. You have to do something like this, where you group common terms and then factor out common factors. In this case, the m is the common factor. And then in this case, there's a 2n. That's a common factor. And it creates, now we've got some common factors here, m minus 3. So what we can write is m plus 2n times m minus 3. Okay. This one is, you can see that there's perfect squares here, and it just kind of helps to know that there's this pattern that looks like that. This is like an exception, but it was really just worth 1 point. So, I mean, if you got the right answer here, there weren't really many steps to doing that, but you needed that. Now, this one I called worth 2 points. There wasn't actually a answer place in your exam, but I gave you 2 points for this problem. And this is just normal factoring. You know, what are the factors of 8 that we can either add together to give us -6? Well, it was 2 and 4, and so minus 2 and minus 4. And so that's the actual solution. T minus 4, that's factored, minus T minus 2. Okay, a lot of people got this one wrong. It was worth 4 points. Watch this. You did this part. Many people did this part correct. Multiply the x on both sides, and you get x times k equals 2m minus x. A lot of people got this part right. Now, this is where people went wrong. You had to add x to both sides here. And so what you ended up with, what you're supposed to end up with, is xk plus x equals 2m. Now we're supposed to factor the x out on this side. And so I could pull the x out, and what's left is k plus 1 equals 2m, and then divide by k plus 1 on both sides, and x equals 2m divided by k plus 1. That got you 4 points. Simultaneous equation here. What I did is I multiplied the bottom times 3 in order to give me 15x plus 3y. It's this 3y that I want to cancel out with this negative 3y equals 84. And then when I add the two equations, this is elimination, I get 15.5x equals 93. Divide 15.5 by 93, and you get x equals 6. Then if we go back here to the first equation, you can see that this is just going to be, it's going to be 30 here. So subtract 30, and y equals -2. So 6 and -2 gets you the points there. This one, you had to have some type of, cross multiplying here. So m times the 3 gives us 3m, minus m plus 4 times 4 gives us this. And then we have to do 6 times both of those. 6m times m plus 4. And then, of course, there's many different ways to do this, but minus 16, 3m equals 6m squared plus 24m. You can kind of see now things are coming together. This is minus m, so I'll add the m on both sides. That gives us to 6m squared plus 25m. That's looking good. And then we have plus 16 if I bring the 16 over to this side. So all that equals 0. That gets you 3 points, anything like that. Now, so solve the equation. And if you notice, you needed to not leave this as a radical. You had to actually find the estimate or work out to the 2 decimal points. So if we do a equals 6 and b equals 25 and c equals 16, and the quadratic equation is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a, right? Then what we end up with is negative 25 plus or minus the square root of 25 squared minus 4 times 6 times 16 divided by 2 times 6, right? And simplifying that, we get negative 25 plus or minus the square root of 241. And this is divided by 12. When you work this out, there's 2 problems here. There's negative 25 plus this. There's negative 25 minus this. And so just calculator work. And it's that and that. That problem didn't really seem to be too much of a problem for many folks. Okay, so the next piece, f of x equals f of, or g of 1. F of x is 2x plus 1, and g of 1 is ends up being 5 when we do 1 squared plus 4, right? And so in this case, x equals 2. Very simple problem. B ended up being 17. If we do f h of 3, well, h of 3, if we do h of 3, that equals 2 to the 3rd power, which equals 8. And then f of 8 equals 2 times 8 plus 1, which is, you can see this is 16 plus 1 gives us the 17. Find the the inverse of f of x. And so what we have is y equals 2x plus 1. We'll switch the x and the y here and then solve for y. So x minus 1 equals 2y, and then switching the sides, we end up with x minus 1 divided by 2. Okay, g f of x in the simplest form. So remember, if we have the g and f of x, this is how we have to think about it. We'll write g first. Okay, so what do we end up having? We have, so x squared plus 4. So x squared plus 4 is g, and then f of x inside of g looks like this, 2x plus 1. Now, some people went wrong here when they tried expanding this, and you have to basically not forget to do this piece. 4x squared plus 4x plus 1, and now we add this plus 4 here. So what we needed to see in this case was 4x squared plus 4x plus 5. That gets you the 3 points. And number 3, so it tells you, it's nice, chose this problem, it tells you that they want you to use the sine rule. What is the sine rule? Well, it's can be written different ways, but the sine of theta, actually, let's see here, we won't do theta. we'll say the sine of A over the side A equals the sine of B over side B. And in this case, we want to use the sine of C over little c. We can use any combination of the ratios. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to say the sine of C, which is 84.6 degrees, equals or over 17.8, okay, over this side is equal to the sine of B, that's what we want to find, over 5.9. And this is now a proportion that we take this, we multiply it times this, and divide it by that. When you do all of that, you find out that the degrees are 19.27, or you could just do 19.3 degrees. All right, what else? So calculate the area of the triangle. Some people were confused by this, but really, there's a number of ways to do this, by the way. It's a little bit higher mathematics than IGCSE to do it using a formula, just a straight formula. So in at our level, what we're wanting to do is we want to draw a right angle triangle here and tell ourselves that the opposite side over the hypotenuse is the sine. So the sine of 35 degrees equals the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So 7 times the sine of 35 degrees equals the height of the triangle, right? And so what was the sine of that guy? It was, I didn't write it down, so I'll just do it real fast. It's sine of 35 equals 0.573. Multiply that times 7, and you get the height, which is 4.01. Multiply that times the base, divide it all by 2, and you have the area of this triangle, which is 20.08 centimeters squared, something like that. Okay. Calculate AC. Okay, so AC, we want to use the rule of cosines. And now some people were kind of confused because they labeled A, B, and C. I always, when we're using the rule of cosines, this corner piece, we usually just call it A, right? And so what we want to do is we want to find little a, because we know the cosine of A. Now, if you remember the rule, what the rule tells us is that if we make a little side equal, right, like this is the side A squared, then we're going to square both the other sides, adding them together, okay? And then we're going to subtract 2 times, in fact, 2 times both sides, but not squared. Actually, it's multiplying these ones this time. So B times C, and then we're going to multiply it times the cosine of angle A. So in this case, so big A. Okay, so now what we need to do is just fill in our numbers, right? So we had 7 squared plus 10 squared. So 10 squared minus 2 times 7 times 10 times the cosine of 35 degrees. So if we do all of this, what do we got here? Cosine of 35 again is 0.82. I'm just going to call it 0.82 times the 70. This gives us 49 plus 100, so 149 minus let's see here, times 70 equals that, times 2 equals, so if we multiply this times 2, then we get 114.68. Let's subtract that from 149. And what we end up with is 34.32. And that's what a squared equals. So we'll take the square root of both sides. And what we're ending up with is 5.8, and I'll just call it 5.86. That's the length of AC, 5.86 centimeters. Okay, that's the last problem on this exam. If you have any questions, you can ask me. I don't think there's any retakes on this one, guys. We are at the end of the year, and yeah, Safi, if you are interested in doing some stuff for the summer, like some work over the summer, revision, let me know. I can hook you up. I've got a neat resource. Otherwise, yeah, that's it. Thanks.